Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Recently, the so-called black mainstream media, Ebony, The Griot, The Root, and many of these other so-called mainstream African American Negro media outlets decided to publish a series of articles about Insecure star Issa Rae. And in this series of articles about this so-called Insecure star, they decided to take a passage from her 3-year-old book, Awkward Girl, where she made a statement about how black women should go out here and date Asian men. Now, I was ready to go in and roast that Issa Rae, that Buck Denson, Aunt Jemima mammy in a video. However, I began to take a critical look from a panoramic perspective at the whole situation. And as I took a critical look at the whole situation, I began to see how our so-called black mainstream media was being used by white supremacy to manipulate the Afro-American Negro masses. And when it comes down to this so-called controversy regarding Insecure star Issa Rae, the Afro-American Negro masses are being manipulated by so-called black mainstream media. Now, as Professor Black Truth has said in many of his videos, black media is dead. And the reason why black media is dead is because black media has been bought out by Big Six white media, the Big Six oligarchy, and they control mainstream black media. So that means because they have the money, they control the media, and they control the narrative of what goes on in that media. And they're using this Issa Rae controversy to manipulate the Negro masses like a puppet master on a string. And with this controversy, you have to take a look at it critically. Now, as someone who has studied the entertainment industry for 25 years, I can tell you that this is nothing more than a marketing stunt designed to generate controversy and get people talking about this washed up, buck dancing, Aunt Jemima syrup eating mammy, Issa Rae, and get people interested in whatever product she has. Because the only reason why they brought up that passage from that 3-year-old book, Awkward Girl, was to generate controversy. Because when it comes down to Hollywood, Hollywood is like this. Whenever they have a person they want to push, what they want to do is generate some sort of controversy to get publicity for that person. So what they will do is have their star go out here and do something that is outrageous to get attention for that star. And then once people start talking about them, they then use that as a springboard to launch whatever product that star is going to be featured in. Now, I saw this happen way back in the 1990s with a lot of these so-called Playboys models, and what they would do is they would get this celebrity, they would pose nude in Playboy, and then they would generate the controversy on shows like Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, and the tabloids, and then they would use that as a springboard to launch whatever product they had. And they would also do it with other mainstream media outlets, because I remember with Vanity Fair, they had Demi Moore posing nude when she was pregnant, and then they had her posing nude for Esquire magazine in 1993. And just as she was posing nude in the magazines, all of a sudden, she's got a movie coming out, and I remember when she had striptease in like 97, 98, again, they used the posing nude to get attention for her and to generate controversy, and then use that as a springboard to launch the movie. Now, when it comes down to this Aunt Jemima scarf wear syrup eating Negro, Issa Rae, here we have another attempt to generate controversy from black so-called mainstream media. Now, what they want to do with this so-called controversy again is get people talking about Issa Rae and get her name out there so they can get people talking about her with this marketing stunt. Because when it comes down to a 3-year-old book in the publishing business, a 3-year-old book is usually just a backlist book that most people don't consider unless it's really selling. So there's no attempt to push backlist books like that, because backlist books, they're going to get ordered no matter what. When they go out here and generate a controversy with this and dig up an old 3-year-old book, what they're trying to do again is trying to do something to push a current product featuring that star. Because in publishing, it works like this. Usually the backlist titles sell themselves, and usually the publisher focuses on frontlist titles, because frontlist titles are what they're looking to generate revenue for that year and use to push that year. That's what they're usually marketing in publishing, is you usually are pushing your frontlist titles, not a backlist book like this Awkward Girl. Now, the reason why they're using that book to generate controversy is because they have a product they want to launch with Issa Rae. And the product they probably want to launch is either Insecure Season 2 or whatever minstrel show they have planned featuring Issa Rae, America's favorite mammy. Now, when it comes down to this Issa Rae and her statements, they show us how deeply dysfunctional this Issa Rae truly is. Because this Issa Rae is a completely self-hating Afro-American Negro female. And we can see that from what she presented on HBO's minstrel show, Insecure. Because on HBO's minstrel show, Insecure, Issa Rae went out of her way to present the most negative image of the Afro-American Negro female and the most dysfunctional image of the Afro-American Negro female. And what she, wrote in this Awkward Girl is par for the course when it comes down to the self-hating Afro-American Negro female. She decides to make a passage in a book making a statement saying that black women should go out here and date Asian men, the demographic of men who have the least amount of interest in the Afro-American Negro female. Now, when it comes down to the Afro-American Negro female, she is the Asian man's last choice. Because when it comes down to the Asian man in general, the Asian man will choose his own woman first, whether she comes from China, Korea, Japan, Cambodia, Laos, any of these Asian countries. He's going to choose his own woman because in most cases, Asian men have a lot of Asian pride. Now, if he has to take a second choice, the Asian American man, in many cases, he's going to choose either an Asian woman or a white female, or in some cases, a Hispanic female. And when it comes down to most Asian men, they will choose the black woman last, and that's only if she has ample economic resources. Because when it comes down to non-black men and white men, they usually choose women only for the economic resources. So you're not going to see an Asian man going out here and having a relationship with a poor black female. No. When it comes down to Asian men and white men, they get involved with women based on economics because they are looking for a female who has economic resources. And when it comes down to the guys who do get involved with this black woman in most cases, they usually are of a poorer stock. So you're not going to see an Asian man who is a businessman going out here and pursuing a relationship with a black woman. Usually it's a poor guy, and after he gets involved with her and gets his resources up, he then discards that black woman because he now has the economic resources to go out here and monkey branch to a higher level female of his own race or a white female. And that's usually how these interracial relationships go. And when it comes down to these interracial relationships, many of these black females, they're just completely clueless, and they'll sit there and they'll read Issa Rae's book believing that there are so-called dating options, But there are no dating options. When it comes down to Asian men, non-black men, and white men, they are only going to deal with black women with resources. And usually the guys who are dealing with black women are usually at the bottom of the barrel, the men that most of the females want absolutely nothing to do with. So most of these black females who think they're going to get some great Asian guy, no, you're not going to get that. What you're going to get is a beta male, or at worst, an omega male at the bottom of the social ladder, the leftovers and cast-offs that the Asian women just didn't want. And when you read books like Issa Rae's Awkward Girl or this Crystalline Caras and Swirling, when you read these books and you believe the propaganda in them, all it's doing is setting you up to take a huge fall. Because how can Asian men be so interested in black women when we see them beating up black women in these hair supply stores when they believe that they're shoplifting? This is a critical question many of these Negro females don't want to answer regarding things. If these Asian men are so into black women, again, why are they always beating up black women in these hair supply stores? And why is it that these Asian men are not talking about black women on the regular in their media? Now, I've watched a lot of Asian media over the years, and you never hear any Asian men going out here and talking about black women like that. I mean, you can go into the manga circles, you can go into the anime circles, you can go into the K-pop and the J-pop circles. You do not hear anyone sitting there talking about black women like that. But many of these black folks out here, these Negroes, they go out here and they believe this propaganda written by people like Issa Rae telling them that black women should go out here and date Asian men. They don't talk about that in their media, but we talk about it in our media. And that shows us how deeply corrupted so-called mainstream black media truly is. Because when it comes down to mainstream black media is now an extension of white supremacy. And that's why you can't believe a single thing you hear in mainstream black media, because mainstream black media has its tools, it has its mouthpieces, and it has its puppets like Issa Rae that they use to promote the agendas of mainstream white media and white supremacy. And what they want to do with this whole Issa Rae controversy is generate a divide in the black community and get black men arguing with black women on the whole interracial dating controversy. But we should not be arguing over the interracial dating controversy. No, we need to start calling out mainstream so-called black media for being a puppet of white supremacy, because when it comes down to mainstream black media no longer serves the black community. And this whole Issa Rae controversy shows us that we need to divest ourselves of so-called mainstream black media like Ebony, like The Root, like The Griot, like many of these online sites like Madame Noir, because these media outlets have no interest in giving us the real of what goes on in the black community. All it wants to do is generate fake controversies to get people chasing their tails, like that hit piece that was created saying that straight black men are the new white people. And when it comes down to so-called mainstream black media, it no longer is interested in serving the interest of helping to build a strong black community, or interest in presenting the positive image of the black community. All it is a group of buck dancing, bojangling minstrels looking for the acceptance of a white slave master. And this is why I can agree with Professor Black Truth and Mr. Superboy and many others in that We need to divest from so-called mainstream black media and create a new black media, because in new black media we will see what is really going on in the black community, and we will really get fair and balanced and objective stories about the black community and the black experience. And as the publisher of SJS Direct, I would rather be a part of the new black media that is black owned and black controlled and is black first, because when it comes down to that mainstream black media, they show me they have no interest in presenting anything positive regarding the black community or the black experience. Because when I look at this Issa Rae so-called controversy and how they manufactured it, here you are taking a passage from a 3-year-old book in order to generate press for a buck-dancing, bojangling, Aunt Jemima syrup-eating mammy. It shows me how desperate mainstream black media is to get attention, because when it comes down to the mainstream black media, many of these people have no talent, they have no creativity, and they only live to get the acceptance of white people, not try to create black media to uplift and empower black people like I do with my SJS Direct imprint. And if you want to try some of the titles of the SJS Direct imprint, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.